All right, let's dive into something really important today. We're going to talk about what some are calling a quiet crisis in India's education system. But more than that, we're going to explore a really powerful response, an approach that's blending timeless, ancient wisdom with the skills our kids actually need for the future.
You know, this quote, it just hits home, doesn't it? It perfectly captures that feeling so many parents have. Our kids are doing everything they're supposed to do. School, tuitions, the endless cycle of exams. They're putting in the work, but there's this nagging feeling that something fundamental, something essential is just missing. That real spark of learning, it feels like it's getting lost in the shuffle.
And that brings us to a really tough question, one we kind of have to ask ourselves. What if school, as we know it, just isn't enough? What if, despite all the structure and all the rigor, the system itself is falling short? Maybe the entire foundation needs a second look.
So this is what people are starting to call the quiet crisis. And it's exactly what it sounds like. It's this strange situation where kids are physically sitting in the classroom, right? They're present, but their minds, their curiosity, they're absent. They're just not engaged in the actual process of learning. Okay, so here's where the real problem lies. Think of it like this. On one side, you have what our kids do in school. Memorize, recite, and pass exams. It's the mechanics. But on the other side, you have what they're supposed to get from school, actually grasping the concepts, knowing the why behind things, and building genuine confidence. That quiet crisis, it's the massive growing gap between those two things. And look, this isn't about pointing fingers at teachers or students. It's a system problem through and through. When you've got huge classrooms, teaching that's all about memorization, and this constant, intense pressure to perform on exams, well, where's the room to ask questions? Where's the space for curiosity? It just gets squeezed right out of them.
This goes deeper than just bad teaching methods. It points to a much bigger gap, almost a civilizational one. It forces us to ask a really fundamental question. Are we trying to create thinkers, or are we just building a generation of really, really good test takers?
And this is where you can see a major shift in what we value. If you look back at the ancient Gurukulam tradition, it was all about transformation. It wasn't just about learning facts, it was about shaping a person's entire being, their intellect, their emotional balance, their ability to think critically. Compare that to today's system, which, let's be honest, often feels completely transactional. It's about completing the syllabus, hitting targets, and getting a score.
Now, before you think this is just about being nostalgic for the good old days, it's not. These principles from ancient Indian knowledge systems are actually more relevant now than ever before. I mean, think about it. We live in a world where AI can memorize anything instantly. So what's left for us? What makes us human? It's stuff like critical thinking, creativity, adaptability, and these are the exact skills that this ancient wisdom was designed to build.
Okay, so we've laid out the problem, and we've hinted at this deep well of wisdom that's available. Now, something really exciting is happening, a kind of conscious revival. So let's turn our attention to a really powerful solution that's emerged from this. It's a program called Utthista Bharata.
So what is Utthista Bharata? Well, at its heart, it's all about recalibrating how we think about education. This isn't an either-or thing. It's not tradition versus technology. It's about blending the two. It's about taking today's essential skills and anchoring them in timeless wisdom. And it's designed as an evening program, so it works alongside regular school, complementing it.
All right, so that's the big idea, but how does it actually work? Well, the whole thing is built on three main pillars that all work together to create a learning experience that's, well, whole. Think of the method as a three-step journey. First, you build a solid foundation with learning that's actually based on understanding concepts. Then, you build a bridge from that foundation to the world we live in now, with digital and future-ready skills. And finally, and this is key, it brings it all home with a focus on human development. It's about reviving that old Gurukulam spirit. Okay, let's look at that first pillar, concept-based learning. This is all about totally rewiring how kids learn their school subjects. So forget boring, passive lectures. Here, they're learning through games, hands-on activities, and talking things out in small groups. It's an active approach. And it's not just about making learning fun, it's scientifically designed to help their brains switch from just memorizing to actually understanding. The whole point is to bring back curiosity and get rid of the fear.
Now for Pillar 2, digital and future skills. This is so important because it makes sure that being rooted in tradition doesn't mean you're stuck in the past. Kids get actual hands-on experience with the tools they're going to need. Everything from basic computer skills and how to be safe online to playing with creative tools and even getting an introduction to what AI is all about. It's about preparing them to not just live in the future, but to be the ones who build it.
And then there's the third pillar, the one that really ties it all together: human development. This is where that Gurukulam spirit really comes roaring back to life. It's about deliberately teaching those skills that you carry with you forever: how to communicate, how to be confident, how to work in a team, how to understand your own emotions. This is the part that makes sure we're raising capable, well-rounded human beings, not just machines built to complete a syllabus.
Okay, so we've got the problem, and we've got this really thoughtful solution. But the million-dollar question is, does it actually work? Let's get out of the world of theory and look at the real-world impact this has had. To find out, a pilot program was run for 3 years at a school in Hospit, Karnataka. And this is important. This wasn't some fancy high-end private school. This was a real-world test in a real-world environment, which gave us powerful proof that, yes, this model can work.
And the results? They weren't necessarily big, flashy headlines. They were quiet, but incredibly powerful. Dropout rates went down. Kids who used to be completely silent in class started speaking up. And, this is huge, they started asking questions. Learning became something joyful again, not something to be afraid of. It just goes to show, when you take away the fear and replace it with real understanding, kids will naturally engage.
So what's the real takeaway here? The advantage is the whole package. A child doesn't just get better marks without all the stress. They actually gain confidence. They develop skills they'll need for the rest of their lives. They grow as people. Because at the end of the day, this isn't just about getting a good report card. It's about building the foundation for a good life. And that leaves us with one final, really important question to think about. What is the true measure of education? Is it the number on a report card, or is it the kind of person a child grows up to be? Capable, confident, and ready for whatever life throws at them?